He does not miss a social interaction unless he is really not feeling well. And I got a text from his wife at like 3 a.m. and she said he's not going to make the show today. So thank you, Julie, for giving me so much heads up. And thank you, Ezzy, for stepping in. And get better, Scott. And let us know if you're watching. Let us know over here in the comments. Say hello. Ezzy, what have you been up to?
I think we've just been filming, and I've been trying to do my best Scott impersonation. So just social events and shaking hands and kissing babies.
Right. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of film. Events are back, and that's your space. So you've been doing a lot of event stuff.
Yeah, it just feels right. It just feels right, because we love the people, and you get to meet a lot of great people who are doing great things that you would never know otherwise. So, yeah, it's exciting. I'm glad that events are back.
I'm so glad events are back. What up, Ezzy? The man, the myth, the living legend, goat. That's a goat. Devin's best friend.
I think he meant a sheep. I think that's what he might have like fat fingered his icons or something. That might have been, like a leopard or something. I don't know.
I know this is a goat because Devin's best friend told me I was a goat the other day because I took them somewhere. And I was like, oh, what? Greatest of all time, if you don't know. Like, I didn't know. Daniel says, hi, Ezzy. Good to see you. Michael says, hello, Ezzy. Great to meet you here. And hello, Aaron. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for remembering me. I truly appreciate it, Michael. All right. Well, let's do this. We have a fantastic panel we're about to get to, but I do not want to start the show without recognizing why we all get to do this today, and that is because my favorites over at Bank of Blue Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's take a minute to shout out the Bank of Blue Valley doing all the great work, and honestly, they were the first to really go all in on supporting content creators who are trying to do virtual networking kind of like we do and introduce people. So, I absolutely love them. I've loved them for a long time. And a fun fact that a lot of people don't know is that the former one of the former vice presidents, when I first came to Kansas City, he took me under his wing and introduced me to a lot of people who got my network going. And so I have a strong affinity for Bank of Blue Valley all the time. And he's since passed away. It's unfortunate, but I love Bank of Blue Valley, and I'm glad that we get a chance to show them some love here.
I want to also go over, if you are looking for a new career, a changing career, a new job, Bank of Blue Valley has some open positions right now. There's some amazing open positions right now. Make sure you head over to their site to look at them. If you're looking for like an awesome culture, an awesome team to work with, I wanted to shout that out. All right, you got a couple more people on here. Oh, look, Lori's actually with Bank of Blue Valley. So thanks for watching, Lori. And then Jennifer Dehan says, Ezzy, don't you ever diminish your awesomeness. You are a goat. So, not a sheep. All right, are you ready for the show?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You guys, every morning, Ezzy and I are like this on a 9 a.m. meeting, and everyone that works with us is like, it's a lot. But we have a good fun time. All right, here we go. I told him I was bringing him in order by who was here the earliest. So this is the first time I've ever done this. And since you've been on the show, Ezzy, we've cut out the music because you couldn't hear me say the name. So lots of changes since you've been here. So our first guest today is Pat. Hi,
Pat. Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Our second guest today is Brian.
Hey, Aaron.
And last, but certainly not least, he is the deepest voice on the show, so I'm very excited for you to hear him, Mr. John.
Hey there. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me.
I love it. I called you Mr. John because that's your first name, and both behind my neighbor and across the street from my neighbor are Mr. John. They're brothers. And I was like, that got weird. That got weird for me. So thank you for joining us, guys. Well, we're just going to get started right away. Make sure you're saying, well, first of all, when you guys hear all about these three guests, you're going to see there's going to be so many questions. So ask your questions early so we can get to everything today. So let's just start with you, Pat. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Okay, sounds good. Pat Phelan, CEO of Leap Hospitality. Started the business 15 years ago. What we focus on is we sell furniture millwork to the restaurant, bar, hospitality industry. Brands that you might know: First Watch, the Cordish Company, Bolay, Casey Hops. There's some other national regional brands that we help manage. We also are a full-blown recruiting agency, executive search on a lot of different verticals, just not hospitality. Most of our clients come through the private equity side. And then lastly, we handle kind of high-end logistics for casinos and hotels across the country as well. How I got to Kansas City was actually through college. Met my wife down in Columbia. I'm originally from Peoria, Illinois, and I guess love took me to Kansas City. That's why I'm here. And I've been here for 25 years. Been here longer than any other city. Love it. And great place to raise a family. I've got 2 girls, one in college and one about ready to leave high school.
Okay, so you said so have you always done recruiting with it, or is that something you're newly in? Because I know recruiting this year is insane from what I'm hearing.
It is. Good question. Started it 6 years ago. Partnered with a guy named Chris Wonder, who has driven that business for us. Started from literally $0 in commission 6 years ago. Today we will book, probably a little over $1.1 million worth of commissions in recruiting this year alone.
So
Yeah.
what were your thoughts on that vertical during lockdown when recruiting got a little bit scary?
Our business took off, and believe it or not, we kept pushing through. A lot of people took the time off. We never sleep, so we continue to push through and made the connections and the relationships, which is why this year's been so great to us. Where a lot of the recruiters just kind of said, I'll kind of hang out in a van down by a river or on a beach or something like that. We said, no, we got our laptops out and started making calls and built the relationships. We were just looking at this today. In the 5 years, the next person we recruit will be our number 200 since we've been in business. As far as placement's concerned. Yep.
Nice job. Okay, I have a couple questions on that, and then I'm sure Ezzy has a question. First of all, I mean, I guess both sides of your job got a little scary during the pandemic. So did you go in on one more than the other? And then 2, why do you think you were so resilient when a lot of other people did just stop?
Relationships. We had a pretty good pipeline built, but we also, I felt like we're pretty diverse in our customer base. So when maybe one customer was down, the other wasn't. That helped out quite a bit. And just staying connected to people and we're just not a number. We got in tune to their culture and making sure, and we're a pretty lean company too, where we could ride the tide a bit. We were down last year for sure, but we continue to make phone calls. Actually, we hired a couple business development people during the pandemic, knowing there was time to build relationships. That's why we're at today.
Nice. Any questions, Ezzy? This is your space, way more than mine.
So Aaron, you said I can promote stuff too. I'm gonna put on.
You can do whatever you want.
I'm gonna put on a different hat. Just this is our new brand.
Oh boy!
Right, I am popping this out, Ezzy. Watch out. So $1 Million Recruiter is a new venture. You're going to hear a lot more about it. Go on my LinkedIn feed. We actually have created a masterclass to promote this, to teach other people how to recruit and become $1 million recruiter in 1 year. And we're going to actually be doing a webinar here in 2 weeks that you can learn kind of a sneak peek behind the scenes on what that's all about. Mainly targeting existing recruiters, but also people that may want to get into the business and understand how to scale business and work from anywhere with a laptop and a phone.
I like that logo. I'm a logo girl, so I like that logo a lot. Let me ask you a recruiting question while you're saying that.
Sure.
This is something that I think a lot of people in there, if they get really known in their industry, they deal with this. So I'm kind of known in marketing, right? And so I get a ton of marketing resumes, but on the other end, I get a ton of people saying, who's looking for a job in marketing? So I've recently reached out to a couple of recruiter friends and said, what should I do with all this? And they're like, start a recruiting part of your business. I don't feel like it works with I just don't feel like I know it well enough to work with mine. Is that something I could take your class for to figure out how that could work within my current business or as a separate business?
Yep. You'll turn that into $1 million business after you take our class, guaranteed.
All right.
I like that.
You heard the guarantee. I heard it.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. I think everyone here heard it,
As your marketing girl, your future marketing girl, I think the word guarantee is always scary. I like it. I'm going to use it. Well, look who showed up. It's Chris Wonder.
There's the man.
But he's got to capitalize on that last name, right?
Say it again.
He's got to capitalize on that last name.
Yes, he does. It's a great last name. You're right.
Great last name.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Brian, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Yeah, well, my name is Brian Davidson. I'm founder and president of a company called MindVue, where it's our goal to measure and develop mindsets to enhance mental wellness in a very proactive way to ultimately optimize performance in individuals. So we measure and develop things like our motivation, our grit and perseverance, resilience, self-control, and all these other factors that we find in research that are related to a lot of positive outcomes in a person's life. And so we've had a wonderful opportunity to assess and work with a different array of organizations, from United States Military Academy at West Point, helping cadets there, and leaders, to San Antonio Spurs on the pro sports side, to places like Johnson & Johnson. And in fact, we're also looking at applying our platform to help inmates cultivate these skills as a way to reduce recidivism within the inmate population. So the applications for all this is quite vast. I started with all this work as a teacher, in fact. So I'm originally a small town guy from Iowa, grew up in Harlan, Iowa, and then went over to the University of Iowa, graduated with a degree in psych. And like most people with a degree in psych, realize you can't do a whole lot with that degree by itself. So I backed it up with secondary education. Took my first job as a teacher up in the Twin Cities. And I've always been super fascinated on what made my students successful. And so I was trying to figure out what makes those great students tick. And we thought it came down to two key factors, the first of which was intrinsic motivation, and the second was self-discipline. So I wanted to figure out how those qualities develop in people. And so I came down to the University of Kansas and started a PhD program in the field of counseling psychology. Well, this program down at KU was a hotbed of this area of psychology called positive psych. So a lot of psychology focuses on what's wrong with people. Positive psych studies what's right with people and what leads to high performance, high well-being, and leads people to lead a good life. And so I started to learn about these factors like resilience and grit, growth mindset, hope, and all these other factors, again, that we find are related to so many positive outcomes in a person's life. And so when I was in this program, I was at Baker University in their counseling center doing therapy with students. And as I was doing those counseling sessions, I quite honestly, I grew frustrated with the process, Aaron, that I felt like everything was so reactive that we waited until those students were struggling so much before we worked to equip them with some of these skills. So before this, I was a teacher, right? And so I started to think, could we work to prevent many of these issues that I was facing there in the counseling center by teaching and cultivating these skills? Could we cultivate things like resilience? Could we cultivate things like intrinsic motivation and grit within individuals? And so that became my mission, is to try to figure out how to do that. How do we first measure these skills well? And then secondly, how do we build these skills to help people succeed and thrive throughout their lives? And so I continued to do more and more testing. I initially started this work with high school students. I developed initial assessment back in 2012, and we found that assessment was predicting academic performance really well in those students. And then just anecdotally, we could see a lot of these students that were low in many of these skills were struggling mightily in school. And then we developed an after-school leadership program to see if we could actually improve these factors. And we found that kids that were going through this program were actually showing an improvement on our testing from pre-test to post-test with that direct intervention in place. And so that gave us hope that we could actually cultivate these factors, right? They're not just set in stone and you're born with these things, but instead we can cultivate these factors and educate and develop these components. And so from there, I continued to do more and more testing, started to expand this with more adults. For my dissertation there at KU, I looked at the relationship of these skills to successful leadership behavior in organizational leaders. And so we assessed just an array of different variables, looking at anything from a person's high school and college grades to the years of leadership experience, to their family background, to the leader's mindset, these mindset skills. And of all those variables that we looked at, we found the very best predictors of who is demonstrating successful leadership behaviors was that leader's mindset skills. In fact, their sense of hope and grit were the very best predictors of who is demonstrating successful leadership behaviors. And whereas things like their years of leadership experience, their family background, even their cognitive ability, those things didn't predict at all. And so when I was defending my dissertation, I told my committee, I said, what got me into the school were two things: my grades from undergrad and my GRE scores. And I told them, I said, that's not what got this dissertation done. What got this dissertation done are these other set of variables, these other components, these softer skills, these non-cognitive positive psychological factors like our resilience, like our hope, like our self-control. And so I said, why are we not doing more to try to cultivate these skills in more people? And so that's become our mission. I launched our company in 2015. Our first several years, we spent going through the validation process with our assessment. It takes an incredible amount of data. We assessed thousands of individuals from about 23 different countries across the world, and now have continued to roll this out. In this past year, we launched a learning experience platform that takes a person's results on that assessment and then delivers up content and resources, learning modules to help them cultivate the skills where they can best use that support. So we're trying to develop the right skills at the right time for that person. So the ultimate goal, again, is to be very proactive rather than wait until somebody's struggling and dealing with a lot of adversity. Let's try to get ahead of that curve and work to cultivate these skills, to build the best in people, get them to feel very motivated, feel very perseverant and resilient, feel like they're doing it with integrity. Because when that comes together, that's when magic happens. And so with our learning experience platform, again, we're trying to get ahead of that curve and develop these factors and provide analytics and dashboards and additional reports to help people grow and develop in these areas.
Okay. That sounds amazing. First of all, I remember one thing from a college one time at KU, and it was my psychology of personality class. So I obviously really like psychology too. I just learned that the taller you liked a guy was the more security you needed. And at the time, my boyfriend was 6'8", so that's what I remember. But I do have a big question. You said we have people from the San Antonio Spurs, from West Point, from really the 1% of those people are pretty motivated already to end up in those positions, right? And now you're bringing on a prison. What do you expect is going to be the difference in all of those results that you're going to find? And how do you, what is your expectation of how your software is going to help? Because those are two very different, vast places on the pendulum.
It's a great question. So in our earlier days, when we were creating this assessment, we thought we were capturing whether or not a person had it, that you just have grit or you have resilience. And this explains why somebody performs so well. It's because they just got it, right? They've got these factors. And we would assess these amazingly accomplished individuals, people at the very top of their game. Again, we've assessed people in pro basketball, in NFL, and high-level leaders, CEOs of organizations, military generals, so forth. And occasionally we'll come across these situations where we'll see an amazingly accomplished, high-achieving individual who, in some cases, wouldn't score all that well on our assessment. And at first, we were scratching our heads saying, what's going on? This person is the epitome of grit. They're the epitome of resilience. And yet they wouldn't score well on these variables on our tool. And the organization would say, well, this is one of our top performers, right? They're just an amazing person. They're a great employee. But what gives? They're really motivated. They're doing everything they should be doing, but yet they scored low on this tool of yours. And so I'd say, I don't know. Let's go and have a conversation with them. And in that conversation, we'd come to find out that, yes, they'd accomplished all these great things. They were killing it in their job or, making gobs of money, had great titles and positions, but internally they were miserable, that they had very little sense of passion for what they're doing. They weren't feeling a great sense of purpose in that work or weren't finding it meaningful. They were feeling stuck, going through a divorce in their life, or just got diagnosed with something. Stuff was going on in their lives. And so what we came to understand is it's not about a person having these factors, but instead it's about how a person is thinking and feeling. That the person is not just a resilient person, but instead that they are feeling resilient at this particular point in time. So we started to revise our language of how we're talking about this. It's not a depiction of who somebody is as a person, but instead a snapshot of their mindset to understand how are they thinking and feeling relative to others. So then we can use that information to proactively help them.
That'll be so interesting to see how you do that within the prison. Because I've always had a strong opinion. I don't even know if I should say this on the show, but it's me, so I'll say it.
Probably not. They probably will.
But I will say it. I think that many prisoners could be amazing business owners and entrepreneurs, especially if they did it for like a lot of big time drug dealers. They're running a business at the end of the day, right? And if those same skill sets were put to I don't know, an agency or something, they would be in a much different position, right? And we'd look at them much different because the business was legal. So it'll be interesting to see those those results? I'm really interested.
Aaron, we've already done some testing with a group of inmates, and what we found is the inmates were lower than average than most, but they weren't considerably low in everything. That a lot of the areas were pretty close to normal, what we see with other populations that we assess. But we found that the inmates were low in a sense of two key factors. The first of which was self-control, which is resisting temptations, having that impulse control in place, and then their sense of integrity, feeling like they're operating with a strong moral compass and being honest and trustworthy, and then trying to do good in people's lives and avoiding doing any harm. So those are the two key areas that we noticed were significantly lower than what we typically see in other populations.
So one of the other things that I see being a determining factor for success, and I'd love to get your feedback on, is empathy. And being able to assess a problem from different perspectives, or assess an interaction or a perspective, with that other person's, mindset and goals and feelings in mind, and trying to visualize those. Now, how does that fall into your kind of ecosystem of assessments?
So empathy is incredibly important. Our work is focused on what we call intrapersonal non-cognitive factors. So these are the factors that are going on in a person's own mind, as opposed to empathy is something more interpersonal, dealing with other people, things like forgiveness, multicultural competence, so forth. Those are all incredibly important skills for a person to possess and build and cultivate. And in fact, we're potentially looking at transitioning in time to put a heavier emphasis on those skills right now. However, most of our work focuses on the motivation, the perseverance, the resilience elements, really things that are going on within a person's own mind, as opposed to how they're working and operating with other people.
This is fascinating. All right. Well, when I get to the 200 employees like Pat up there, I'm bringing you in to assess them. Okay. Right now, I don't know if I want to see mine. So give me a little bit of time. So, well, thank you for joining us, Brian. I'm going to have a lot more questions. I'm sure our audience is too. All right, John, who are you? What do you do? How do you get to Kansas City? And make sure you unmute yourself.
Wow. I mean, thank you, Aaron. And how do I follow up those two? I feel so insignificant in what I'm doing. So a bit of a background story to set up what I'm doing now. I spent about 30 years in corporate America at some relatively senior levels across a bunch of different business units, moved all over the place. And in late 2019, I was presented with an opportunity to move to Los Angeles. Well, I had just moved my family to Kansas City. They were getting used to it. They loved living here. We loved living here. And I said, you know what? No, thanks. I'll just move on and allow me to do something I'd always wanted to do, which is run my own business and work for myself. So I started that process of, okay, what does that look like? And I looked at a bunch of different things and happened to fall into a franchise opportunity called the Alternative Board. And this was a company that really spoke to me and what I wanted to do in this next part of my life. And what the Alternative Board does is works with privately held businesses. And we create peer advisory boards. So what that means in real life is I'll gather together 6, 7, 8 business owners, business leaders from non-competing industries. And we sit down together on a regular basis and act as almost like a board of directors for each other. But again, it's a privately held business. So we'll sit down on a regular basis and talk about real things that are going on in each other's business, solicit the wisdom that's sitting around the table, and get help moving things forward. And you know what? This really includes both professional and personal things. These boards get really tight and really get to know each other on a super deep level that you just can't get in other kinds of business relationships. You know, as business owners, everybody here can probably understand the term "it's lonely at the top." Well, it really is, and most business owners don't have a sounding board they can go to. They don't have somebody that they can bounce ideas and challenges off of their business. And that's what the alternative board does. So we talk about things like, finances of the business, personnel issues, really deep things in their business, and get things moving forward. So we use the collective wisdom of the group. There can be sometimes 100, 200 years of business experience on these boards to help each other out. So it's a really, really cool thing when you see it in action and people start helping each other grow their business and move it forward in whatever fashion they want. So I assemble those, I facilitate those boards. Our members typically stay around 5 years on any one board. So there's some longevity there. People definitely see the value. And here's the thing is, our members typically see 2.5 times revenue growth as their peers that are not in an advisory board setting. So it definitely pays off. Combined with that, I also provide private business executive coaching to our members. So I rely on my 30 years of experience across sales, marketing, operations, and just company experience to sit down with owners and leaders one-on-one and help them through challenges. A lot of the times that has to do with just planning and execution of the business. I have a lot of experience in strategic planning, so I help folks figure out how to get from point A to point B in a logical fashion that moves their business the way they want to. So that's the alternative board. But I have a second business I'm just now starting. It's called the Sunflower Advisory Group. And my specialty is delivering a great customer experience. I mean, you all know it. A day doesn't go by where you don't see some video of someone just having a complete meltdown in a store for sometimes good reasons, sometimes bad reasons. But what I always look for is, how does the company handle that? How do they address those issues? What are they doing to help mitigate situations like that? And frankly, prevent them in the first place. So I have some expertise at building customer experiences, identifying who a company's customers actually are and how they handle that and how they build their whole experience and what they want it to look like. So I help them discover that. I help them build some structure around that and then implement it. And over the long haul, continually revise it and revise it and relaunch it as you need to, so you can keep that experience fresh and have a great situation for the customers, whatever the business it happens to be. So that's kind of my story. I got here. I grew up in Kansas. I went to the University of Kansas. Then I left the area. Again, I lived all over the place and had an opportunity to get back here via my company a few years ago. And then I decided, not going to Los Angeles. We want to make this our home. So we're really happy about that.
Well, with lockdown, you made the right decision for sure, right? Because you couldn't have visited that beach too much anyways for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question that, I ask what I think, as he's always so scared. But really in both of your businesses, you do what many would consider a coaching type role, right? An advising coaching type role. What I have found as a small business owner that gets hit up with every single marketing piece ever is that there are quite a few people out there, not with the same experience as you by any means, that are calling themselves coaches. I have made the mistake in the past of hiring a coach where eventually I was like, why is she not paying me? I'm just talking about her marketing the whole time, right? Like, what's going on here? So I have always steered away since then. I've been a little bit scared because I don't know how to pick out the right coach and what to look for when I'm looking for a good business coach. Can you tell us what a business owner should be looking for when they are hiring a business coach so that they feel that, so they do get the results you're talking about and that they feel that it's a good business decision? Because the coach isn't going to advise you on the hiring the coach business decision, right? They're going to say it's a good decision, but right. What should people watch out for and what should people look for?
Boy, what a loaded question. And let me start with, this is something you guys might not know. Business coaching is the second fastest growing profession in the United States right now behind IT. And the reason that's happening is, we all see it, right? People are exiting the workforce in record numbers. You've got a whole generation of baby boomers who are retiring as planned, and no one really wants to stop working or is in a position to stop working. And one of the easiest things to do is say, I'm a consultant. And now one of the easiest things to do is say, I'm a business coach, because, hey, I can talk to people. And they are in record numbers, and I'm getting hit up with them all the time. I mean, it says that in my title, and I'm still getting offers for people to coach me. So you're right, Aaron, in asking how the heck do you wade through all these things? Well, the first thing you do is obviously you look at the accreditation of the person, right? Either they're a certified coach, as I am, meaning they've gone through some sort of training and program where they know what they're doing. You also look to what's their background. It doesn't have to be business oriented. It can be education. It can be teaching. It can be a bunch of different things. But do they have the qualifications to even be talking to me about stuff? And then the third thing is, and this is by far the most important, you've got to feel comfortable with somebody. Because in a real coaching relationship, it is wide open. The coach should be doing listening and hardly any talking, and their coachee should be doing most of the talking. And that's how these things work. I'm not here to impart a bunch of wisdom. I don't have that much. But what I am here to do is listen to people, try to figure out what's really going on, and help them get from here to here when they tell me here is where they want to be. So you got to really feel comfortable, and there's a whole lot of trust in there. And this is a relationship-based transaction.
Do you think that if a coach has like certain industries, it's better to go with a coach that knows your industry, or to go with a coach that you're more comfortable with? Which one do you think is more important?
Yeah, I would say it's more beneficial to not have somebody who's real deeply involved with your industry, because what ends up happening is that they just tell you how to do things. And especially someone who has some experience in that business, they'll just end up, oftentimes, not everybody, but oftentimes they'll just say, well, this is how we did it, or this is how I did it. And that's really not relevant. What's relevant is how you want things done and how you want to grow. And my job as a coach is to help get you there.
I never thought about it like that. Well, see, I think you're just as interesting as everybody else on the show today. I think you did a good job. All right. Well, okay, we're going to dive into everybody's story a little bit more. But I kind of love you all kind of got into some of what the last year and a half's been like. Obviously, it's been a tough year and a half for a lot of people, but there's also been a lot of positive, and people love the positive spin on this show. So, Pat, we're gonna head back over to you. Can you tell us kind of a win that you've had this past year and a half? I know you kind of talked a little bit, but what's something that just is something you celebrate that you would have never seen when they said, "Oh, by the way, we're going on lockdown, close your office"?
Our business, and you asked about survival. How did we survive and get through it? And part of it was that we're real diverse. So we don't have just one big win. It was a combination of a lot of little wins. Our furniture and millwork business year to date is up 46% over last year. Our recruiting business is up over 40% as well. That's a big enough win for me. It's all the little teeny things that make up that big thing. And I'd rather have a business, and I think it's more sustainable of having the little wins. So for us, that is the big win, that just year over year, and a combination of vast number of clients, some new clients as well, that make up the whole versus just one big one.
Chris would like you to also say this.
Yeah, we did. That's a good point, Chris. Another service that we've actually been providing is connections in the M&A side. So Chris has done a really good job in executing our relationships with the private equity side. So a lot of times we'll get in the middle of someone that may want to merge or be acquired or sell. So we'll make those connections, and we closed 2 acquisitions this year. from a private equity company through other individuals that were either ready to retire or merge and scale their business with some private equity money.
I feel like that industry is doing really well too, right? Because I keep getting hit up on that industry too.
Yep.
Right?
It's phenomenal. Yeah, there's a lot of consolidation going on in a lot of different industries right now. And
your friend Mike Myers says he's so glad to see his man Pat here on the show today. He's an inspiration of perseverance. Sorry, I can't read. I can't read in business as a young entrepreneur. So, hi, Mike. Mike's been on the show before.
He has. He's my brother-in-law, so I did pay him for that endorsement.
Well, I got some knowing him the other day because in my kid's theater, my kid was in a play to Late the East, and in the program it said Myers Music was a sponsor. And my 9-year-old's like, my mom knows him.
I'll kind of elaborate on what he said though. I don't know with John and Brian how long their business have been in, but for 15 years now, this is the second or third weird kind of incident in our economy that I've gone through, and it does take a lot of perseverance. First one was in 2008. And then obviously the COVID deal, and I never thought I'd be throwing 2 curveballs in a span of 15 years. So being patient, understanding how to pivot. And, I tell a lot of people just because maybe today is not going so great doesn't mean tomorrow will be. You have to have kind of some grit associated with that, as kind of Brian had talked about, and some patience as well.
Right. You guys kind of all I don't know if people know how we do this show, but we just give you a link and you pick out the date, and you don't know who you're going to be on the show with. Pick out the day that works for you, and that's kind of what keeps the organic feel. And all of your industries kind of go together today. It's kind of crazy. I love it. Brian, what's a big win you've had this past year and a half?
Yeah, for us, it'd be launching our learn experience platform. So it's something that we've been working towards for quite some time. So we collaborate with a great company here in the Kansas City area called CD2 Learning. And we've created this platform to create all these great learning modules to help people cultivate these skills in a scalable manner. And years ago, I had the opportunity to go over to New Delhi, India, to go work with an educational group over in New Delhi. And again, I'm a small town guy from Iowa. And so going over to New Delhi was an eye-opening experience in so many different ways. But it showed me the sheer number of people that exist within this world. And so it's always become a mission for us to reach a global population. And with this new platform in place, it allows us to be able to do that and scale to populations that we would have never otherwise had the opportunity to reach. And so another great win would be getting my alma mater on board here as of late. So we got the University of Kansas on board, which is I'm really excited about. We continue to expand more into the higher education population and helping both faculty as well as students in cultivating these skills. So great wins on that side. And again, I think another great win would just be getting through this pandemic, right? Continuing to stay hopeful and optimistic and persevering as we continue to navigate through all this, that each day we wake up and we're alive, it's a good day. So that's a huge win right there.
In theory, had a business used you, say in 2019, had you done the surveys on the business, could a business have come to you in theory at March 16th and said, who do I put? Who has the most grit? Who do I put in charge right now? Who leads this through this?
Well, again, that's what we thought, how we would use this assessment in the earlier stages as a much more of a predictive tool to see who's got it. And we shied away from that simply because we've come to understand, these skills don't exist in a vacuum. Everything that's going on in a person's life, that can influence these factors. And so if somebody's going through some significant adversity, or let's imagine that they're in a real toxic work environment where they got a manager who's just, not a good person and not treating people well, they might not be very hopeful and very, very gritty when you assess them at that particular point in time. But if you pluck them out of that environment and put them into some place where they can truly thrive, have a great leader that helps them grow and develop, they very, very well could do great work. And so we don't necessarily ever want to write somebody off just because of where their mindset might be at currently, but instead continually recognize that we can always grow, can always improve.
What about opposite? Because what I saw during the pandemic is a lot of people that maybe were a little bit more that you didn't realize were as gritty. They actually had maybe come from tougher backgrounds, or like getting locked in wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to them, right? Maybe most of my friends that had come from tougher backgrounds versus my friends that had come from better backgrounds were able to really get out there and hit the ground running from day one. Are you able to kind of see that too? If they're put in a tougher situation? Those numbers
a lot of people think that if you've gone through significant adversity, that makes you stronger. Well, the research doesn't necessarily support that. Okay, that just because you've gone through hardship doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be more resilient with future adversity. In fact, it can, in some cases, be the opposite. It's only when that person has learned and developed the skills to effectively cope with that adversity will they be better able to deal effectively with that newer adversity down the road into their future. So it's really what the person has learned. And so we can't just assume that just because somebody's had a rough childhood experience that they're going to be more resilient when they face some significant setback or hurdle, because that's not necessarily the case. Research doesn't support that.
You're taking down every breakup quote on Instagram right there with that, right? You're really ruining Instagram with that one comment, but that's fascinating. Mike says he really appreciates you have diversity on your program, Jayhawks and Tigers, both on the show today. Oh, that was me. I thought that was yours. But yes, Jayhawks and Tigers. See, we can all get along in this world. It's also not the 90s where we hate each other as much, I feel like. So, all right, John, how about you? You started a few businesses, you got a lot going on. I imagine, especially with the advisory boards, you got in right before people were looking for where to turn to and who to talk to. So how's the past year and a half been for you?
It's been interesting. Leaving a corporate job with great benefits and a paycheck that just came every 2 weeks like clockwork to starting your own business on your own is that's quite a change. And I suffered a little bit of whiplash from that, but I have persevered and got through it. And you're exactly right, Aaron. This is an interesting time. Lots of folks are struggling with what do I do next? How do I get over this hump? And lots of people are not struggling, but they just need some help getting that final couple of yards. And so it's a perfect time to be in this business. So my professional win was having the guts to do what I did. Again, coming from the corporate world, this is a big change. So just doing that. And on a personal note, I think everybody can relate to this. During the pandemic, you probably went one of two ways. Either you got yourself insanely in shape, or you said to heck with it and laid on the couch and ate a bunch. I was definitely in the latter half of that. So I needed to get my act together. And I started doing cardio boxing, which is the most awesome workout you have ever done. Plus, not only does it get you in shape, but if you have just an ounce of aggression in you, you can really get it out in a boxing class. So it's just a fabulous workout. So both professional and personal.
I like that, John. Well, I did the workout like crazy, and then I just gained it all back because then I jumped on your program. So I think a lot of people take it one way or the other. I thought I'd try them all out. I wanted to point out Danielle's comment. He said, "Great points on coaching. A good coach listens 70% and talks 30%." So I thought that was really interesting. All right, I am not comfortable with what's going on today. Ezzy is one of the smartest people I ever know, and he's being so quiet, probably because this is how we function in our friendship. But Ezzy, I want you to come up with the most amazing question you've ever come up with that all three of them can answer on the spot.
Yeah, so I want to manage expectations and say that the question's not going to be that good. It just isn't. See, yeah, now I feel better. But yeah, no, it's to the point of entrepreneurship. There's a general sentiment that I've seen running entrepreneurship groups that entrepreneurs first are motivated by fear, just pure raw fear of what have I done and I can't fail. And then as they kind of get seasoned and become seasoned captains, they transition to a place of analyzing, what that fear looks like and what's at the bottom. And, when they lose that fear of what's at the bottom, they become better navigators. So it's kind of an interesting path there. But one of the things that I've heard throughout all of you all is the psychology of business. All of you all have kind of touched on the psychology of business, and I'd love to hear what each of you think is, the key, or at least one, because there can be multiple, at least one of the key attributes that helps determine, success, whether as an employee or as an entrepreneur. That's a dealer's choice there. You feel free to decide. But, what's something that the people watching can take away, like, wow, that's maybe something I hadn't considered that I should be considering or looking out for, as they look at, whether they have what it takes to be successful or whether their employees have what it takes to really be successful in hard times.
Yeah. So great question, Ezzy. And the fear is definitely a factor. I used to have that as well. And then once you cross that line and you kind of see that it's not so bad, although you go through some difficult times, I don't think it ever goes away, though. I always call it the self-paranoia. I always feel like it's going to go away tomorrow. So I constantly operate in that. And I think that's pretty common with entrepreneurs a lot. And it keeps me driven. But what I've seen for myself personally and others, it's really understanding your purpose. And when I decided, really probably 6-7 years ago, I wrote that purpose down of why I was doing what I was doing. And it kind of came more family based and got me balanced as to why I'm getting up every day to provide for my family and had certain goals and different things. And even past that, I mean, I'm rechecking that right now as my life is changing. I've got 2 girls that go to college, and my whole purpose to make sure we provided for them. And now what's my new purpose? And that to me really defines kind of where not only you're going to take your company, but yourself. And if you don't understand that, I think it's difficult to kind of move in a positive direction, in my opinion.
Good answer. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I just want to build off what Pat was saying. My initial thought that came to mind was intrinsic motivation on my side. And so intrinsic motivation, this is about having a sense of meaning and purpose in what we're doing, that we all want to have a greater why behind our work. That's when we're going to be the most motivated. Yes, we all want to make gobs of money. We want to do well and have great titles and positions. Those are all extrinsic motivators. They're powerful for motivating people, but they're short lasting. But when we have that deep sense of meaning in what we're doing and that deep purpose in the work, that's when we really thrive. And then added to that, I'll add in the concept of grit, that any aspect of greatness, it takes time, right? It doesn't take just weeks or months, but it takes years of hard work. And so you got to have that grit, and grit's all about having a sense of passion and perseverance. So you have to be so passionate about what you're doing that you feel like you can stick with it for an extended period of time. So when we can combine that sense of meaning and purpose combined with a deep sense of passion for what we're doing to make us feel like we can stick with it for a long, long time, that's when the good stuff happens.
I saw the bet. That was a great, both your answers are great. And I know John's is going to be great, but I'm going to jump in with this meme I saw today because you just reminded me of it. I've been in business for a little over 6 years, and this still kicked me in the face today. It said, it's Beyonce quote. That's because I really like Beyonce. This is the Instagram. I told you you're ruining. Beyonce rehearsed for 8 months for a 2-hour performance. Think about that the next time you want something in your business to work right away, right? Beyonce. 8 months for 2 hours. So I thought that was really interesting. I think, especially in the social media world where it looks like everybody's doing everything so quick, right? Sometimes that grit, people don't realize how much grit that really takes. John, how about you?
Yeah, man, some really good ones so far. Purpose and grit. Those are perfect. So I'm going to add to that and say, you've got to have an insatiable curiosity. The most successful people never stop learning. They never stop asking questions, and they never stop pushing themselves forward. And it's all just this curiosity about why things are working, how they could be done better, how we can move this forward. So curiosity will really help you propel you forward in a big, big way.
So you became an entrepreneur after 30 years in corporate. Did you evaluate all this? And do you agree with Ezzy's assessment that fear really is what's driven you? I mean, and you had to have double fear because you started in a pandemic, really. So, I mean, is that a good assessment, would you say, where you were last year at this time?
Certainly, fear is always there, right? I'm in a position where I don't have employees. It's just me. So no one's counting on me. If I fail, it's just me. But there's still a great deal of fear there that helps move you forward. the question becomes is how do you channel that fear into productive, productivity every single day? And for me, it was, I'm going to go back to what I said. It's all about asking questions, learning, and developing, even at my advanced age, developing as much as you possibly can, because every single day I learn something new. Every single day I discover something that is just brand new to me, and it's a new experience, and it helps me learn, helps me grow, and it helps me help other people.
I love that. John Bacard, who's been on the show before, says it's nice.
Yeah, I love John. Love you, buddy.
He's doing a lot of cool things in town. Okay, so here's the thing. We have missed Scott so much, but this has been such a great show. I'm like so in, and a lot of times I'm running text, so I don't even know how the text's been going because I've been so into it today. But I do want to honor Scott, even though he's not here, and still do his favorite part of the show, which is my least favorite part of the show. But we're going to do it. I'm going to even ask one of his stupid questions. So Scott is he is Mr. Networker of Kansas City, and he believes that people always end up working with people, and I would agree with this, that they like and they have stuff in common with. So he believes in icebreakers no matter, and listen, I do a lot of happy hours with him. No matter if you're 3 people at a happy hour or 150 people in a room, you're still doing an icebreaker. So we do one every week on this show. So I'm going to ask one of the questions he always asks, and I always have that cringe face on. And then we're going to start with you, Pat. We'll go around, but Ezzy, you are going to have to answer this, so start thinking. Pat, what is the first place you can remember really getting ready in high school, the first place where you went on, it was an actual date and it was memorable, whether it be a chain, Olive Garden, or something like that? What is your first memorable first date place in high school or junior high? Maybe some people are junior high.
Holy cow. First thing comes to mind, Peoria, Illinois, Avani's. A lot of people probably don't know that in Kansas City, but if you've been to Peoria, everybody's been to Avani's, the home of the gondola. And being nervous as heck with my date was Heidi was her name, and her dad was the golf pro at the local country club, and I was a golfer, so it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So is it a restaurant?
It's a restaurant. Yep.
And they have a gondola? That's fun.
Phenomenal. It's like a big sub sandwich, but their bread, Aaron, is the best bread you'll ever taste in your entire life. And it's a regional thing, right? You go from region to region, you think they have the best, but
right.
Avani's has the best bread you'll ever eat.
Okay, I'm going to have to Peoria, Illinois. Next time I'm there, I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to try it. I don't know.
Go for the bread, and you won't disappoint. It won't disappoint you.
Perfect. All right, Brian, how about you?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Going back to high school, that's a long time ago. But I'm thinking for my wife, our first date shows you the mad game I had back then. We made cookies together. We made some sugar cookies together. Went to the grocery store and bought all the ingredients, and made cookies together. Followed by a wonderful movie of School of Rock, and so that evidently won her heart over. So we're married today.
And how long have you been married?
We're about almost 2008, so about 13 years now.
I was gonna say, and you're such a good husband that you didn't even go to that first date. You went straight to your wife's first date. So good job. There's a guy in psychology if I've ever seen one before. So, John, how about you? First date place. What's the memory around it?
Well, I don't remember where it was, but if you have kids, you realize how completely unaware they are of everything that happens in order for their lives to move forward. They just don't pay attention. And unfortunately, we all did the same thing. So I found myself on one of my first ever dates going to a fancy restaurant. After we got done, the waitress brought over the check and laid it on our table. I had no idea what to do next. I had no clue. I was like, what do I do with this? And my date, who was older, by the way, had to tell me, well, you pay here. So I started looking around. Well, where do you take it? And she's like, no, you put your credit card down and they'll come get it. It's like, oh my God. I didn't have another date with this young lady, by the way.
I think that's a teenage boy thing. I have 2 teenage boys, and one just went to his first homecoming. And he asked me, what do I do when the bill comes? I go, first of all, you make sure hers is on there too. Then you just give them that card. He's like, okay. I think that is a teenage boy thing. The girls are always just, they got that stuff. They've been paying attention for a while. How about you, Ezzy?
Yeah, I think that we went to Preface, Little Rock, Arkansas, high school on the outskirts of town. We actually went to tip cows, and we got there and realized that cows are actually pretty intimidating when you see them up close. Like, and like, I was like, I'm not sure I can tip it. What would that look like? If I give it my best shot, and then, the cow's still standing, and then we're out here. So, at the fence, I was like, hey, you know what? Rather than trespass, why don't we go to IHOP? And that was what we did.
As he never disappoints on his stories. Well, I vividly remember my first date, which was a million years ago, but I remember that I went to Applebee's, which is still my favorite restaurant for the record, but with a guy that I don't remember his name, but I ordered the diet brownie because I thought that's what girls were supposed to do. And it was so gross. And I remember that I vividly in that time, and I don't have very many memories, but I was like, I will never again order something that I don't want to eat. I will eat how I want to. And I think I weighed like 90 pounds at the time. No reason to be ordering diet anything. And since then I've eaten anything I want to do on a date. It makes for a much better life. So we have a lot of young girls that watch this show. So if you're watching it, eat what you want, right? Not the diet brownie. We've got a lot of networking going on over here. So I just want to point that out. As always, we have tons of people that do business from this show. So what I want you to do is I want you to go and connect with our fabulous panel. Thank you all so much for coming on today. They have been amazing. Connect with them on LinkedIn. They are all tagged on this show right now. You can also check out the replay on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Thank you so much, Ezzy, for coming on as a guest. I truly, truly appreciate it. And as always, thank you to Bank of Blue Valley for being our sponsor. We hope that you feel better, Scott. Scott will be back with me next week. Please send him your well wishes. And thank you to everyone. We'll see you soon. Next week, same time.